Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Beginning After the End, Season 1, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're immediately picking where the last episode left off, and Arthur, hearing these cries out, he goes, investigates, and finds an elven girl being taken by some slave traders, and he follows them because initially he's pissed and thinking about, like, oh, I'm just gonna wipe them out, but he thinks about Sylvia's lessons and he's like, all right, I won't let my negative emotions get the best of me. And so he tells them, and he's going to wait for them to go back to human civilization. That way that would probably be a way to, like, I'll be in a position where I can track down my family a lot easier, but he can't waste time because he's like, well, there's no guarantee they won't try and hurt her. So he ends up very stealthily kind of taking them out one by one. At first, I was almost wondering if he was not going to go down the killing route, but he does. Because I think the takeaway from the whole Sylvia thing wasn't like, don't lead with violence. If you have to use violence, sure. It's not like don't be violent. Like, use it to protect people. Don't let violence be your first instinct. If it's to protect someone, to stop some bad people, sure. Just don't go out mercilessly trying to kill people, essentially. In this case, he's trying to defend someone that needs help. So he ends up kind of systematically taking everyone out, except for the one guy. He slashed his leg and immobilized him, but then, like, at the end of the scuffle, ended up killing him. The biggest person he had to worry about was the boss. Now, who's to say the others didn't know how to use magic too? Either way, he wiped them out before they really had a chance. Once again, he stealthed all of them, but then the final guy put up more of a fight. Plus, he's in a body, so he's in a child's body, so he doesn't have the stamina. Once again, it's the thing of your mind is thinking of what you need to do and what you should do, but your body can't fully keep up with it because you're coming at it from like a full grown adult wanting your body to move a certain way when in actuality you're a single digit child, you know? But obviously still won in the end, burned the guy's leg and then took his knife and had, because it wraps around the guy's head and then like swerves and like stabs him in the head. I was like, that's pretty damn brutal. That's a pretty brutal way to go. But to be fair, he was already, slashing people already, so it wasn't like, I don't know, man, that being a headshot with a knife was kind of like wild. But yeah, he went off and killed the other guy because it's like, right, I don't want to take the chance you go off and get back up and come after us. So it is kind of like, makes all the sense to, kill him. So, but he ends up rescuing the elven girl, which we later on learn her name is Tessia. And initially, Arthur was just like, cool, I'm going to go on my way. But she knows her home is like in this direction, but she was off on her own trying to capture bugs. And so it's like, I don't really know how, and I won't be able to go off on my own. Like, what if something else happens? So she kind of, puppy dog eyes him in the most adorable way, obviously, to convince him to come along. It's like, oh, don't be a big jerk and leave me behind. Like, how could you do that? So he reluctantly helps her, even though it means going in the exact opposite direction, because you're going more in elven territory rather than leaving it and heading in human territory. Because he's talking about it, and I think it's the interesting perspective of he's never been around another kid, so he doesn't know how to act like a kid, and obviously it makes him think about his own childhood, where it's like he did not have a normal upbringing, and so he never had opportunities. Specifically, the world he's from never probably allowed you to grow up like a decent, normal child. You probably had especially just, it seems like he grew up in an orphanage and it probably wasn't the best of place. Because what we saw, it seemed like he was in an isolated room. So it might have been like a very specific orphanage or something that he grew up in where there was no tender and loving. It's just like, this is where you ended up. Could we see like there are regular families with regular kids? So probably kids did have regular lives. He's just one of those kids who didn't have one. So for him, it's like, oh, here's someone that acts like a kid who's very childlike and reckless like a kid. So it's like, I could learn from her to how to appear to be more like a normal kid, because he is acting like a mature adult inside of a body. But once again, it slips in and out where it's like him being a kid does overwhelm him sometimes. So it's not like he's always stoic. He does get emotional, and I think especially considering you were never allowed that in your original life, and now you kind of have that opportunity to kind of wear your heart more on your sleeve. So, but the two of them are making their journey, stopping to eat, and him even passing on Sylvia's advice. So like, well, you need to eat something even if you're not hungry because you need to keep your strength up. And for him, it's like, I'm already sounding like her. It's just like, once again, it's like, even though it was only for a short amount of time, it was only a couple days, but that experience meant a lot to him. And that's what I'm curious about the pacing of the show. Will it be like a good chunk of the show will be him trying to get back to his family, but the people he comes across along the way on this journey as he grows as Arthur, and kind of like who he was as Gray, those experiences influence a lot of decisions he's made, obviously, but it's more about Gray disappearing and becoming fully Arthur and the experiences that make him grow into the decent human being he's going to be going forward. While kind of coming to terms with and contending with a lot of what you experienced as Gray and the world you grew up in, and making sure this world never ends up like the world you're originally from. Maybe something like that, but he even says, like, right, food was never something he ever really gave too much thought about. Taste, it's just kind of like, because he was basically like a soldier, so it's like, you're not picky about whatever food. Food is just substance for you, so you never really cared about taste and stuff like that. So, but now he's thinking about when he was with his parents and the others from their party eating, and it's just kind of like, well, you kind of take that stuff for granted. They also stopped to rest, like, at night in a tent. And he's like, no, you go ahead and go to sleep and I'll stay awake. But she kept making excuses like, oh, you sure you want to do that? I mean, I think you should probably be inside the tent to do that, I think. And it's like, wait, are you scared? She's like, no, I'm not scared. But I think it would just be a better fit if you just, like, stayed in the tent. And if I need to, like, don't go anywhere without letting me know. And if I have to go use the bathroom, you had to come with me. He's like, all right, just go to sleep. And so he kind of stayed on guard because he was worried that the hounds that they released that those slave traders had, and he was, once again, a little bit of that Gray in him where it's like, you're a threat, I need to kill you. Like, I can't take the chance these creatures might come back to bite us, like, or kill us, so I should wipe them out. But Tessia decides to let them go because it's like, right, they're just being controlled by the humans, and if you let them go, it'll be fine. I mean, she also has, like, kind of a slightly negative opinion of humans because of her grandfather being like, oh yeah, humans are bad, even though she's never met a human, because she's never met a human nor a dwarf, because the elves don't trust the other species, because they just and I think it's just like when you're isolated in your own country, maybe it's like a distant past thing where maybe all three species lived in harmony, but something went down, maybe war broke out as it typically does, and it led to them, like, separating as they do, and maybe they don't really interact at all. Like, do the dwarves interact with humans at all? Because it seems like, I mean, I think, to be fair, like, most things depict elves like that too. Like, elves severely keep to themselves and don't traditionally interact with other races. So I'm curious if are the dwarves exactly like that? It's like all three races keep to themselves, or is it specifically just the elves that typically do that? And maybe they have reason to. Why the grandfather was like, oh, a girl should never lay in the same bed as a man, but she was like, I think I can make an exception this time, even though she's young and doesn't understand that. Even saying like, oh, human males are perverts because they have multiple wives, and it's like, do you even know what a pervert is? She's like, no. And he's like, yeah, like, most humans don't have multiple wives. Like, only a select few of aristocrats are in that position to even have multiple wives like that. So just a misconception of just stories passed down about people, which obviously is a broad stroking generalization of like, oh, humans are this, humans are that, dwarves are this, dwarves are that, elves are this, elves are that. So a development I thought was really interesting is also Arthur's mana core, whatever that situation is. It starts acting up, and I'm wondering what is that. I wonder, is it a byproduct of you're like, because of what you've been doing with, like, maybe because he hasn't gotten the proper training, and what he's been doing is applying what he knows about ki, and he's been applying it to. But I was like, no, I feel like if that was the case, if that was an issue, it probably would have come up a lot sooner with Sylvia. So it might also be a thing of whatever Sylvia taught him, even though he is quick to pick it up, might not be viable for a normal kid body to do, where it's just like the techniques he's using might be so advanced that it's too much for a kid body to handle. So like him building up this big mana core inside of himself might be too much for like it might be like an overflow thing where his mana core is starting like to crack and overflow because he's not supposed to have one that big or be able to draw in that much as a child, but because of his past experience, he's bringing in way more than his body can compensate. That's the only thing I can think of why that happened. So, but one of the hounds they released ended up leaving some food for them, and even Tessia bringing like mushrooms, but they sit well in elven women's stomachs, apparently not male stomachs. So our boy Arthur was going through it. So, But also he's so exhausted, he like finally does like go to sleep. I think his Manticore situation being what it is started playing a part in like exhausting him. But he also didn't want to tell Sylvia not Sylvia, Tessia what's up, because he's afraid like, well, if I do, it's going to just worry her. So he's kind of shouldering that on his own as they're kind of making this journey. And I thought it was kind of a cute thing where Tessia was like, oh, like because we are basically friends now, can I just call you Art? And he's like, sure. And she's like, really? That's all you're going to say? He's like, all right, I'm sorry, Your Highness Tessia. Of course you can call me Art. And she's like, well, here you are being a douchebag. I kind of don't want to be, I don't know. I can't believe for a second I was thinking you were a friend. But yeah, they find the entrance to the Elven. It seems like a teleportation entry. It kind of reminds me of The Nightmare Before Christmas. I've not seen it in a very long time, so this might be also a weird reference to make. But I'm basing this also like because it's been so long since I've watched a movie. I'm basing this mainly on Kingdom Hearts 2. But like, there's those woods inside of Halloween Town. Is it called the Winterlands or Witherlands? It's like where all those dead trees are, and one of those trees leads to Christmas Town, which I would assume that's how that works in the movie as well. And that doesn't, I don't think that was something they just, because I think because each of the trees leads to a different like town and stuff like that. So it almost kind of, it made me immediately think of that forest that leads to all the different towns. It's not the same, but it just, for whatever reason, that's what immediately popped in my head. It doesn't seem like that's the traditional entrance to that elven village, but I'm curious if it's a situation of, well, for one, I'm assuming it's just like that's an elven village, and it's not like that's where all elves live. I'm sure there's like multiple villages around, not less that is the one place where all elves culminate, whereas like humans are scattered around, and maybe dwarves are the same way, but maybe elves all live in one particular area, or maybe it's just this particular hub or town. But what was interesting though is the moment they went the point I was making is it's unclear whether that's the only entry, but it sounds like it's not, because they say like, oh, the teleportation was activated. So I wonder, is the only way to that village is to teleport to it, or is there a more traditional entrance? It's just that just happens to be, well, because that's interesting, because obviously we're in the vicinity of, we're going in the direction of where she was taken from. So she must have used that. So it kind of makes me feel like the teleport might be the only way in and out of that village. I don't know. But then when Arthur and her arrive, he immediately gets grabbed up, kind of understandably, because he's a human. Even if being a child, he's still a human, and they don't have the best opinion of humans. But I thought what's interesting, though, is the look on Tessia's face when this happens. And so immediately I'm like, okay, is there more going on with Tessia? Because we do see her in the outro wearing, it could just be like her clothes in town, because she's wearing kind of like very raggedy clothes. So part of me is wondering, like, we're not going to find out she's actually a princess or something, which would be interesting considering he used to be a king, and maybe she's next in line to inherit. But like, the fact is, yes, he's a human and she's an elf, and they didn't do anything to her, but for them to immediately jump on him like that, even if it was just being a human, it feels like she's someone of importance, and it's like, oh, we can't trust him being with. So I'm curious, is she going to play up the whole like, oh, I'm going to pretend like I'm not close to you, because it's going to, like, no one's going to believe that, and I got to ease things over so that you're okay? Or is she going to say like, oh, I just used you to get back to my village, I can't fully trust humans? Or I wonder, is that going to be the justification? I'd like to believe not, after everything they've been through. I think she does trust him. I think she might just be putting up a front because she thinks no one in her village will really listen. And like I said, it also depends on if she is who I'm thinking. Like I said, I think she's a princess, but maybe that's not the case. We'll ultimately have to wait to see where the next episode takes us with all of this, to kind of understand more so the elven perspective on things, and maybe whatever stuff might be hidden about Tessia that we don't know yet. It'd be interesting, as she might not have the same circumstances as Gray, but what if she's a little, can we also, typically elves age very differently than humans, so she might be a child, but like, what is a child in this world? Very much like the whole, once again, the parallel I keep making because of just watching it at the same time. I'm the evil lord of an intergalactic empire, whereas like in that world, it's like they age for hundreds of years, even like regular humans. So it's like, oh, like the age of adulthood is like 50 to 100. So I'm curious if, like, maybe she might appear to be a kid too, but she's actually a little older, maybe in the same vein of, whereas he's technically maybe like a 30 or 30 something year old, or maybe late 20 something year old, maybe she's like the equivalency, even though she looks like a kid. So she might be more mature, but she might be putting on a front as a child. Pure speculation I'm throwing out there. Well, like I said, next episode will probably give us more clarity about everything. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.